Alright, so a little background on how I got into this project. I was mowing the place a couple weeks ago. Got about 3 hours into the job, I was almost done. I started smelling a little bit something, got down off the tractor, took a look, nothing stuck out to me. Looked like everything was fine. And then about 5 minutes later, the radiator started squealing. The radiator cap was whistling at me and it was boiling over a little bit. So shut it down. I had something to do that afternoon, so I went and did that. Came back later that night, fired right up and pulled it into the barn. And didn't think much of it after that. A week later, it was time to mow the grass again. I looked everything over before I started. Everything looked fine. Hopped on, got about 3 rounds of the yard, and it started doing it again, so I knew I had an issue. Again, let it cool down, pulled it back in the barn. So there's really 3 things that could cause this. Number 1, your radiator is clogged. Number 2, your water pump is worn out. Or number 3, the pathways that the coolant runs through the engine are clogged. So hoping for those first 2, and I came into the garage this Saturday morning to dig into it and see what I could figure out. Okay, let's get into this a little bit. As you can see, I have this pulled apart already. Just talk you back through how this came apart. This right here is your water pump. There was not a gasket under it. Whoever had put it on last time had just put it on with some silicone. The new water pump does come with a gasket, so that'll get done right this time. It does seem to turn fine. I don't feel anything in there I don't like. The one issue, there's supposed to be, let's focus, a bypass plug right here, and that looks to have been burned out. So I don't know if that was primarily the issue. I don't think it's new. You can see all the dirt in there. The new one will have a plug in there though. So yeah, probably just looking how that feels right, but instead of pulling the water pump apart, I decided to buy a new one, primarily because that plug was blown out. Then on top of that, your pulley that goes over your fan fits right on top of there and bolts there, and then your fan blades bolt directly to that. So that was pretty simple to take apart. Then there's your radiator core. Again, I took that thing off, filled it up and flushed it out a couple times, and it didn't seem to be blocked, but again, I probably went ahead and ordered a new one for this as well. This one was a little bit more expensive. I think that was over $300 at Steiner's Tractor Parts. The water pump itself was only about $100. So yeah, a little pricey. Probably could have reused that one, but I have it torn apart. I'm going to do this right because I expect to keep this tractor running a good long time. So just knock it out while I have it apart. So while I wait for parts, I am going to take care of some other stuff. I do have some new rubber boots to fit in here, so I'll get that taken care of. You can see a lot of this wiring is kind of Frankenstein, so I'm going to redo a lot of that, and the headlights haven't worked. I'm pretty sure it's because this was worn through here. So I will get that taken care of. It is overdue for an oil change, so I'm going to take care of that. I'll take a look at these spark plugs, make sure everything looks good there. I'm going to take this cover off. I did notice there's quite a bit of oil that's leaking over here, and this summer it's been leaking a lot more. That was not something that happened before in previous years, so I'm going to dig into that as well, see if I can figure out what's going on there. Other than that, this tractor has been amazing for me. I've had this probably 3 years now. It's a 1946 Allis-Chalmers C, only about 19 horsepower, but this little thing has so much torque. It's been a real workhorse around here. I have 3 acres and I have a finish mower on the back and knock out mowing this place pretty quickly. The only thing I've had to change on this, fix on this in the time that I've had it. I had a one bottom plow. I was trying to plow the back 1.5 acres of my property here and burned out the clutch. So that one's my fault. But other than that, it's been a really great tractor, and looking forward to getting this all tightened up again and getting it back on the road. Alright, so I got the bottom oil pan off and got it cleaned up a little bit. The old gasket was a bit crispy, and whoever had worked on this before had tried to shove some silicone in there too, so spent some time getting that cleaned up. Got the new gasket on there. Holes punched out, all lined up well, which makes me feel good. I am going to look in the manual and see if they have a torque spec specified for that. I have my new oil filter that I got from Steiner Tractor. And let's see. Also noticed that there appeared to be a small amount of oil that was leaking past the plug, so I'm going to silicone tape that back together. But okay, let me put the camera on fast forward and get this thing back together. Alright, I'm using 15W40 diesel engine oil. Looked online and quite a few people have recommended to use this for these older tractors and older engines in general. So that's what I'm going with for this time. And I looked up the capacity, and it is, this will take all of this. It's 4 quarts or 1 gallon for the capacity for this engine. Alright, getting ready to put the new water pump on. I bought this from Steiner Tractor. It did come as just raw metal, so I took the time to give it a couple coats of black paint that's able to take heat. So, yep, we tried to protect that a little bit. Almost exactly the same. I know I pointed this out earlier. There's the weep hole on the new one, and the old one here, as you can see, looks a little blown out. The only other difference that I noticed is this one does have this port and plug in the back, and the old one did not. But other than that, everything looked good. Came with a new gasket. I was able to clean up this surface. There was some residual of the old gasket on there previously. I scraped all that off and reached down in there as much as I could with paper towels to try to sop up as much of the old coolant as I could. Just wanted to get as much of it out of there as I can, but time to get this bolted up and put it back together. water pump all on. Time to put this radiator back on. Just looking at these two, at first I was a little bit wondering if I should have bought a new radiator. As I mentioned last time or earlier in the video, I put water through it. It looked fine, but seeing this thing, and after all the work I did to tear this thing apart, I'm glad did the right thing and bought the new core. Pretty much the same. The one thing I will notice, I need to add a ground bolt here. That's where the lights, the wires for the light connect. I might try to move this rubber grommet over to here. That's where the headlight wire runs through. But as you can see, this thing has been through the wars. It is beat up. So yeah, some aftermarket welding there, whole bunch of stuff. So yep, I'm glad I spent the money and bought the new one. We'll get it all mounted up and see what it looks like. Alright, wrapping up this video. Got it all back together a couple weeks ago. Ran it a couple times, got the grass all mowed, just to make sure everything was running well, and yeah, no complaints. It's all back to normal. A couple things I wanted to point out. Number one, the dimension between the front of the radiator and this bolt, these bolts here, was about a ½ inch off on the new ones. So underneath the sheet metal, obviously, I had to drill a couple new holes to get the new radiator to fit in there. It fit in the old holes, but the fan hit the radiator, obviously, so there's not too much clearance in there. So scooted that back, mounted up fine. Only trouble I ran into was when I came to putting the sheet metal back on. Couldn't quite line up the headlights. I can't remember if I said earlier, but those were not working anyways, so I left them off for now. I am going to tear this thing open again this winter, and once I'm done mowing for the winter, pull it in the garage, tear it apart, and redo all the electrical. So I'll get that taken care of then. Other than that, everything came out well. Still a couple leaks with the oil. Probably again this winter going to tear a lot of that block apart and replace a lot of the gaskets, just see what I can improve there, and then, like I said, rerun a lot of the electricity and make that the way that it should be. Last thing, I tried to take off these the tie rod for the steering, so I could get the rubber, I guess, bumpers in there, and those weren't coming out. I beat on them quite a bit and screwed up the threads, so that'll be another thing to take care of this winter. Probably have to cut this thing out and then replace it with new ball joints and a rod between them. So other than that, I think I am done with this video. Thanks for watching. If you like seeing stuff like this, like and subscribe. See you later.